Will the Lord be with you?
And also with you.
So I want you to imagine with me, to remember with me what it was like to be slaves in Egypt, to be God's chosen people, but to day in and day out to work for Pharaoh, making bricks, making mud and straw into stuff, and day after day just working to the bone that you have no more energy left, you have no more strength left, and to remember God's promises for God's people, right? And to cry out to God to free us, right? To make a way to help us get out of here. The situation is garbage. Just let us get out of this slavery. And then a God who hears us when we cry out to him, a God who always hears us when we cry out to him, comes and sends this dude called Moses, who comes and these amazing things. You hear these amazing things that Moses is doing in this conversation with Pharaoh, and then one day it comes. You're free. You can go. Leave now. Take whatever only you can carry, but leave now. And you follow, and this God, this Yahweh that you have had this promise with for so long, splits an entire sea, and you walk through it. And you're safe on the other side, and all the military and might of Egypt, the greatest power in the world, is crushed. It's nothing compared to the God who is saving you, right? Who has heard you. And God says, you are my people. You will always be my people, and I will always be your God. These are the things that I teach you. Here is a gift of land. Share it. Make sure that the widow and the orphan and the least and the child, right, and the stranger from other lands, that they are taken care of. Care for them. Share the abundance of this land. Share the abundance of the produce from this land. Take care of one another. Remember the gifts that I have given you and give them to the world. Share them with the world. Stay faithful to me. Be my people. Be my people. And for a while, Israel does this, right? They are God's people. They live into this covenant. They live out day in, day out what it means to be God's people. But over time they begin to forget what it means to be God's people. And they begin to collect. They begin to collect money, and they decide that money is more important to people. And so they collect money, right? And they do other things, right? They decide that this land is not meant to be shared, that it is a land for them and only for them. And they decide that the widow and the orphan, rather than taking care of them, would be better as slaves for us. And you know what? So would the people around us. We should enslave everybody, right? Everybody should be our slaves. And they just keep building this kind of barrier between them and God. They forget that God has called them to be a people, and that God has called them in a relationship. And so they enslave the people around them, and they begin to trust their own military might rather than the promises of God. They fail to remember that God crushed an entire army in Egypt, and that they can rely on their own stuff, and they begin to build this wall, right? And they pray to other gods. They pray to other gods. They forget that they're God's people. And they build a wall. They build a wall between them and God. Something like that. Right? And they build a God between them and God. And God says, you know what? If this is how you treat the gifts that I have given you, if this is how you treat the land that I have given you, if this is how I've treated your neighbors that I have given you, if this is how you treat each other that I have given you, and this is the distance that you put in between me and you, I will show you what distance between me and you looks like. And again, the Israelites are dragged off into slavery. The Babylonian Empire comes, and was it 7th century? Yeah, 7th century BC. Before Christ, right? 7 centuries before Christ, and drags the Israelites into slavery. They're taken into Babylon. They're forced to work there. They're forced to every single day, all 7 days of the week, because they have forgotten. God says, if this is what you're going to put in between me and you, then I will show you what distance looks like between me and you. And so they are dragged off into slavery. The temple is destroyed. And the Israelites, again, find themselves at a loss of what to do. And they begin to remember. They begin to remember the promises that God gave them. They remember that God is faithful. And they remember what it means to be a child of God, to be a called Israelite, to be one of God's people. And they cry out again to God to get them out of this slavery, again to get them free, again that call us again your people. And so that's where this passage comes from in the Isaiah scripture that we got to hear at the very beginning, right? Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term. God says, it's enough. You know what? I can't do this anymore. It is enough. In the wilderness, prepare a way of the Lord. Make straight the desert a highway for our God. What God says is, you know what? This wall, these things that you have done that keep me from you, they're not going to keep you from me. That I am busting literally through. I didn't want to sling it, but I really wanted to sling it, but I didn't want to hurt. Right? God is literally busting through. The God is pushing down these walls that keep God's people from God. Right? And that no more will this wall exist. That I'm kicking this wall down. This wall is I can't take it. That you are my people. You are my people. And God in the prophet Isaiah promises something bigger than anybody had ever seen before. Because in this promise of Isaiah, God says, I am coming. I am coming. And that's good news for the people of slavery in Babylon. It's good news for the people that Isaiah was speaking to, and also the people that Mark is speaking to, and also for us. Because I know that I am guilty of doing this, that I begin to put a wall between God and myself, right? That sometimes I think I'm a little bit greedy, right? I like money. Money's fun. You can do a lot of things with money. You can go on vacations. You can go and you can buy new cars, really cool cars, right? And so, right? Greed. Does anybody else have any idea of what we put up between us and God sometimes? Personal confessions, communal confessions. What are some of the things that we put between us and God? Busyness, right? Busyness. There's a block for busyness. Got another block. What else do we put between us and God? Sometimes I hear what God is saying to me, but I just ignore it. It's kind of like busyness, except for I don't have a good excuse. It's like, right? I ignore God, right? What else? What's what? Anger, right? Sometimes, not that any of us ever get mad, right? Anger might fall down. Anger, right? What else? Jealousy and envy. Those are good. Jealousy. Could you hand me envy? Thank you. All right, envy. What else? Worry. Yeah. I think that sometimes it's hard for me to trust in God. And I do this every day. I read scripture every day. Sometimes it's hard for me to put my trust entirely in God because that little part of me that's just inside me tells me, well, maybe you can do it by yourself, David. Did y'all ever have a voice like that? Maybe you can do it by yourself. Just keep, right? I see some head nods, right? Maybe you can do it by yourself. There you go. What else? Boastfulness. That's boastfulness right there. It's a big box. What else? I've got one more. It says it's for tricks. Anyway, if you wanted to know. Any thoughts? Pride. Pride's a good one, right? And so we build this wall between us and God. And God, our God is a wondrous God, doing something that we never imagined God would do before, that God would come to us. Because God, in watching us go from slaves in Egypt to being a people that have been taught and learned what it is to be like God, to again forgetting what it means to be a people of God, to going to being slaves in another land, to being called people of God, to being taught to be people of God again, to maybe forgetting again what it means to people of God. That God says this cycle cannot continue, that I refuse to let anything come between us. And in Jesus Christ, right, I told you I was going to use this baby, right? In Jesus Christ, God is saying this wall is no more, right? That this wall is done. I really just wanted to knock the wall down again, right? This wall is done. That nothing will stand between me and you. That all these things that you think will keep me from you, they fail to keep me from you. This is how much I love you. This is how much I care for you as my people. You are my people. You will always be my people. And I will always be your God. And I will bust through any walls that you put in front of me. And I will do it time and time again, right? And so, can you help me, April? Help me set up these boxes as fast as possible, right? So we can keep setting up boxes, right? But the thing that Jesus does as we keep setting up boxes is this. Yeah, that's a nice box. Keep going. You're doing great. You're doing great, right? And Jesus says, yeah, this is going to keep you from me, right? And so God continually, you're doing great. Jesus keeps coming into the world, right? You can stop thinking. that Jesus says, this will not keep me from you. You may be full of greed. You may be full of pride. You may have a hard time trusting in me. You may be boastful, right? So many things. And we all have our own boxes that we continually put up between Jesus and ourselves. But God in Advent, God in coming in the baby Jesus, God in the second coming of the Messiah, kicks them down and says, nothing will keep me from you. Amen? Amen. Amen.